To preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, the wounded, and all that. That is the mission of Christ. And when he comes, of course, he's born in a little manger, the lowliest of the lowliest places. Even though he is God, and for those of you that are not of the Christian persuasion, will probably require a whole theological discourse on that. But one of the understandings we know is that Christ is God, but he doesn't stand out there and just look at humanity as we've gone through all these traumatic moments. Rather, Christ comes in the incarnation, what we call the incarnation. He comes into our situation, takes on our human form. He's born like one of us, goes through the times and the difficult moments like each one of us, eventually goes on the cross, dies an unjust death on the cross. Those who are his accusers had no grounds whatsoever to accuse him, because he was blameless as a man. He had lived his life perfectly, but yet he had to go through these traumatic moments. He had to go through these torturous moments, not for his own sake, but for our sake. How does that apply to us? Well, when we are having such difficult moments like we are as a country, as a nation of Kenya, and I believe it's not just Kenyans, the whole world, goes through the same pain when they see innocent human beings going through tough times. Is that right? You see, if we have a 9/11, it's not just the Americans who are having a hard time. All of us as human beings, because life is interrelated, we are able to relate to that. We go through the same pain. Now some go through it more closely than others. Some of us go through it more intimately than others. You're here in Minnesota, you may not be going through it in a tough way like somebody in Nakuru. Now I had my own brother writing to me from Nakuru, Kenya, and saying, brother, it is terrible here. We have gunshots everywhere. We've never had, this sort of thing before. And I'm totally scared. Now, he's going through a tough time over there in a much more intimate way. But regardless of it all, we are all together. We are all brothers. And when one...
We can relate to it very well, because we went through 14 years of civil strife in Liberia. And the president of the Organization of Liberians in Minnesota, Doyen, would have wished to be here today, but he has other engagement. As soon as we heard this, we started contacting other Kenyans, organizations, asking them, what can we do? Because we know what it means to be in a war situation. And we realized that this was the first time for you guys. And that was the same thing with us. I tell you one thing, when the war was coming, and somewhere closer to Monrovia, which is the capital city of Liberia, where I lived at the time I went to school, the first thing that came to mind was, I was thinking about running away. At the same time, I was saying, man, those guys are just going to come one day and the next day it's all gone. I mean, that's how naive we were. And when I think about what you folks are going through, like, people are thinking that way. People are even thinking, it's just going to be over tomorrow. So I don't even need to get a lot of food home because tomorrow is going to be over. Why people was thinking about get out of the country, we were saying the rebels are just going to come and just capture Monrovia, and then the next day we'll come outside and move on. But it's never like that. It gets terrible. At some point I had to put my clothes, when it finally got down to me that it's not going to be easy. I was running away and I had to put all my stuff back there and I put it in the attic, hoping that when the rebels come, they're just going to pass along, and when I come back, I'm just going to pick up my stuff and bring it down and wear them and move on. Later did I know that the first place that the rebel goes is in the attic to find whatever is there. So, so we from Liberia want to show you that we really stand by you. We can relate to your situation. You got to keep on hope. It's all that you can hope for is hope and pray, because there's not much you can do, as especially when you sit at the far end, you're way in Minneapolis. There's not even a lot you can do. Even folks in Kenya, not much they can do. All they can do is to hope and pray that God is going to intervene in some way and somehow. But believe me, we are standing by you. Let us know whatever we can do, because we know what it means to hear the sound of gun. Is something that we know very well, and it's not a pleasant sound. It's a terrible sound that doesn't keep you sitting where you want to sit. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here, and we can assure you we stand with you.
What I always tell some of my friends is that I remember one thing when I was in Kenya. I visited your country in 2005. That was in May 2005 with an institute called the International Press Institute, with about 500 and more journalists all over the world. That was our first press conference or world assembly to discuss about press freedom, about human rights with the media over there. So I made a lot of good friends in your country, but the thing that always strikes me back is that I left Europe, that was Austria, with my passport in my pocket like this. I traveled all the way to Kenya, right into my hotel. Nobody asked me, where is your passport? Then I started telling some of my friends, I said, look, here's my passport. Nobody asked me at the airport. The only question was, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from the African Union, the AU. And they said, okay. I collected my bag till I went to the hotel, I think, Pan-African Hotel. When I was leaving again, everybody was saying, please come back to Kenya. Oh, you are welcome to Kenya. So when I saw the images, what was happening, I said, what is happening? What is wrong with this beautiful country? Why are people killing? They should have learned something from Sierra Leone. That's my country. We had a war for almost 11 years. All of you can tell. There is a documentary, Cry Freetown. People were hacking, children, women were raped, everything. The country was in complete turmoil. But the thing is that Sierra Leoneans were able to learn from their lessons. One, we learned the essence, the importance of negotiation, talking, discussing. At that time, the government in my country was saying, oh, we don't talk with rebels, we don't discuss with them, we can't sit on the table with them. Then people start asking, who are the rebels? They are Sierra Leoneans. Why did these people decide to fight? Why are they taking up arms? You should talk and try to listen. They are Sierra Leoneans. President Kaba was saying, no, we don't talk to them. The time they decided to talk to Foday Sanko, the rebel leader, it was too late. The country was completely devastated, going backwards for 20 years. I remember that time I graduated, I always walk around with my passport in my belt, with copies of my certificate. I always tell my friends, when I go downtown, I don't want to come home again. If there's something, I will just go further. So this is a country when you are in a war situation, you don't think about anything else. You only think about survival. How do I survive? Where do I go next? Why can't we discuss? Why can't we negotiate? Then the media popped in, the international journalists, some of my colleagues started going in there. We called it catapulting. That means just like a rubber fac, or how we call it rubber fac, a catapult. That means you catapult to one country, you go there 1 week, you report and go back. Our friends started going there. They said, oh, it's a tribal war, ethnic cleansing. We said, no, please. This is a war between Sierra Leoneans. And why? Because of the disparities, the rich and the poor. The gap is so vast. You can't make it. Some of my friends have to drop from school. They joined the military, they joined the rebels, they started fighting. Because there was a government that was adamant to talk. And the people were towing the line. And what happened? All of them, their children were outside here. Some of them are my school friends, my mates. They are here, going to school, some of the best universities. And some of those guys went back. The rebel leader was from the north. The commander, the field commander, and all the other guys were southerners. And a bunch of them. So why can't you talk to them? They destroyed the country. At the end of the day, those that committed the crimes were never tried, because they died in prison. Instead, Sierra Leone's problem was Charles Taylor's problem. They took him to The Hague to discuss Sierra Leone's problem, whereas the Liberians were not asking for Charles Taylor to be tried. The point is that the poor, the masses, suffered. At the end of the day, people are wasting money, spending it to try criminals who were not even part of the game, what happened? So this is what we should have learned. There is no child's play in war. War is not a child's play. Once you give the guns to those small boys, they perform. They don't have anything to think about. We went through that. Boys were 8, 7, 13, killing people, massacre. My village, we have 3 houses, they massacre them. They don't even think whether these houses were built over 300 years ago or 20 years ago. No, for them it's destruction. So we have to talk. Sierra Leone's problem was not ethnic, was not northerner or southerner. Sierra Leoneans who were disgruntled. This is what other countries should realize. Kenyans are disgruntled. People that are not happy with the system. So the only way that they don't have nothing to lose. They have to vent out their frustrations. That happens. So until you start to discuss with them, know what is the problem, how do we move forward? How do we solve the problem? What do we need to develop the country? You think as Kenyans, don't think as this faction or this faction. That will totally destroy the country, that you won't even stand to look at it. That is what we learned in Sierra Leone. And up to now, we are trying to build up the country. The government that promised the people that, oh, we're going to build everything. What happened? They never did anything till they left. 20 years now, we have a new generation of illiterates. Young boys who were supposed to be in college or school, within that 11 years of the war, they are there, frustrated. They don't have work to do. They don't have anything to do. We wasted it. You talk to somebody who will tell you, oh, I'm moving from 5. They can't even write. They don't even know what is happening. The discussion, you can't discuss further with them. They wasted their time. This is what Kenya should also think about. We fight, we tell people to go and take to the street, demonstrate, but ask them, where are your children? Where are they going to school? Check the best universities in the world. They are there. I was opportune to come outside because my parents were always pushing. Try to push you to some of the schools. Don't think like these boys. They are going, you work hard, go ahead. But the politicians don't think about you. During election, they talk to you sweet, you voting them in. Or what happened? The next time, it's just a wave. You think about the country. You see? So, we are with you, we think about you, and we also pray with you. I love Kenya, and I always try to think about my friends. I call them a couple of times to ask what is happening. Are they okay? Some of them they told me, yes, we are. But the country is just like a war zone. And I straight off start thinking about my own country. Sierra Leone, you can't even discuss with people when the war was at its peak. All people were thinking about was to destroy the country. And now what happened? We are scraping. Professors, lecturers, they don't pay them for 6 months. You know? So where is the money coming from? You have to think, well, how are we going to build up the country? Even the president at that time that was telling people to take to the streets, they killed more than 100 people from the slums. And he told the BBC that, oh, the military are professional soldiers. The Guineans and the Nigerians are professional soldiers. They are not killing anybody. When the BBC and others went there, people were massacred in the slums called Mabela. And what happened? The poor suffer. They continue to suffer. So let's think about it. Let's think about the country itself. What do we get? At the end of the day, the politicians, come on. They can just call their friends, get a ticket out of the country. Their children are in Belgium and other places. I'm saying this because I know it is true. I visited some of my colleagues in Belgium. The ambassador that was there, his son was using the Benz to go to nightclubs. I asked him, Nat, what is happening? People are fighting. And that same day, they killed more than 1,100 people. The same day when he was in the club in Belgium. So just imagine what that means. While people are killing themselves, those guys are enjoying. I came back to the street, I called the others in Atlanta. You guys, what is happening? Oh, we are going for a wedding. Yes, that's the vice president's children. So please just think about the country as a whole and try to make sure that things work well. When you lose, you lost. The point is that whatever happens, when you destroy your country, you destroy it for yourself. When you build it up, people will admire it, they will go there to do tourism. But when you have a collapsed economy, a collapsed political system, nobody will venture to go there. No, they have to think about some places that are safe. So thank you all again for giving me the opportunity to share some of our problems back home, and see what we can do, we are always willing to talk with Kenyans and discuss. Then you can learn from our lessons. Just check a documentary called Cry Freetown, see how we devastated our country. I'm saying we, not that I participated in the war, but I am a Sierra Leonean. That won't change. So this is the problem. So I thank you again for taking your time, and I look forward to working with you in seeing how we can solve it.
Paul and Alice have asked me to talk with all of you a little bit about what are normal responses to war and ethnic conflict, the way it affects you, the way it may affect your family members, and how you might be able to begin taking care of yourself and some of your loved ones. So I'm going to talk as briefly as possible about that. And we also have a lot of information over here that I encourage you to take about how to take care of yourself, how to talk to your children, information about support resources in the community, and information about our center. There was a question from a gentleman up here, although I don't see him, about what our center does provide. Well, I guess I could wait till the end and talk to you about that. He's on the phone though, so should I let him wait?
You had asked the question and she's answering it, so you can come down here.
Is she done answering?
No, wait for it.
I saw you were on the phone, so I was going to politely wait till the end, but they put you on the spot. So.
Yeah, I politely stopped it.
So I'll tell you. When we see torture survivors from around the world, we provide services that meet the whole needs that they come with. That can be social services, it can be psychological counseling, psychiatric care, help me, what else? Medical care. A lot of times people coming from war-torn areas can have injuries, they can have serious symptoms from having been tortured, from having lived in hiding. And so we try to take the person that is in front of us and assess what they need best and try to help them with rehabilitation and getting back on their feet and getting resettled and being in a good position to help their families. And there's a lot of other services around that, but that's basically what we do. We've been seeing people from wars and ethnic conflicts occurring all over the world, so we have a sense of what are some common things that folks struggle with. And we work together with survivors to help them heal from trauma and rebuild their lives. As part of this work, what we've been doing in Northwest Hennepin is trying to create some networks of support for the large number of refugees that are settling here, especially in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. In particular, there are a large number of Liberians who've been affected by the war back home, and we've been trying to create a supportive community where they can heal and thrive in the post-war years. When the conflict broke out in Kenya after the election, we wanted to offer a safe place for Kenyans to gather, to begin to share their fears, their feelings, and their struggles as they cope with the uncertainty created by violence. After talking with survivors of ethnic conflict around the world, we know that there are some things that they all share in common, and that many of you, because conflict is relatively new, may be unaware of, and it might be helpful to know that these are rather normal responses. Alice and Paul have written an article that's over there that you can take with you that details the information that I'm going to tell you in a lot more detail. It's very normal, first of all, when struggling with stress, to have trouble sleeping, to be thinking a lot about what's happening back home, to have troubles with headaches, with stomach aches, with body aches and pains. What we do is we feel a lot of stress and we don't know what to do about it. You're far away from home. There's not always people to talk to, which is one of the most helpful things to do. And you end up getting headaches. You end up having sleepless nights. You end up having stomach aches. This is something very common we see at the center from people all over the world struggling with similar stress. People can feel quite frightened and panicky. And when you're listening to changing news reports on a day-to-day basis from Kenya, You can develop pounding hearts. You can develop a feeling that sometimes you might have a heart attack, that you might faint. You can feel trembly and shaky. These are really common things that people struggle with, normal people. It would be common to have difficulty concentrating on tasks of daily living. Your mind is always going back home. You're filled with worry, and yet you still have to work. And sometimes going to work is the only relief you get from thinking about what's going on back home. It certainly is normal from the folks that we've been dealing with for you to feel sad, angry, and shocked by the recent events. Feelings of helplessness, which is our concern, one of our biggest concerns at the center, can lead to ongoing problems with depression. And depression, you may not know as it creeps on you very slowly. It makes people slow down. It makes you no longer care. It makes you isolate. It makes you neglect personal hygiene. You might find it difficult to eat and sleep. It's very common, sometimes people have told us, how can I eat and sleep when my family back home is not eating and sleeping? You suffer for them, you suffer with them. And it can affect you very seriously. These problems are made worse if you think that people back home are also unsafe, and you are worried about that. If you know people who are feeling this way, or if you yourself are feeling this way, it's very important to be able to talk to professionals, religious leaders, some of the people who have spoken here today, because there is a way to get help with these feelings. And when they go on and on and on, they can create serious problems in your functioning and your ability to care for your family. And that's probably one of the things that I think Alice and Paul have been seeing in the community a lot, talking with friends, and maybe some of you have been seeing it. Creates a lot of concern. We want to offer some tips for taking care of yourself during these extremely stressful times. We hope that you can talk amongst yourself if we have time left here this evening, which I think we will, to develop some support for yourselves. When people isolate themselves from others, often people isolate themselves from others and turn inward when they're feeling distressed. That's a common thing. So it's very common also for ethnic and tribal conflicts back home to invade your lives in Minnesota, for tribal divisions to be made worse here, and for tribal divides to develop between neighbors and friends here, even though you're not in Kenya. What we know from working with Liberians from warring tribes is that it is possible for resettlement communities to overcome conflicts in their home countries and to join together in the common goal of healing beyond strife. I think we've been very impressed in working with the Liberian community here that although folks have a lot of concerns about their families back home, they're struggling themselves, Liberian leaders have been able to come together to try to help across culture, across ethnic divides, tribal divides, to help the whole resettlement community of Liberians here. I think it's a strength that people have here, and it's a strong strength of the refugee community that they don't stop caring because of their own troubles. It is also psychologically more helpful and easier to bear your burden if you can reach out to friends and family and share your distress and feelings. It's also helpful to continue to do normal things, even when you don't feel like doing normal things, like coming out and being together, trying not to isolate, continuing to do healthy routines like eating and bathing and exercising. Those are the things that actually help with managing the day-to-day stress. It's helpful to maintain your sources of spiritual support, and also because many of you are listening to the news every single day, try to remember when you get overwhelmed that at times it's helpful not to listen so much, hour after hour, to be aware of the kind of stress that you're under and take some breaks. Please take extra time for self-care and be patient with yourselves, with your friends, with your family, and your neighbors. Parents and children also struggle to remain close during difficult times. Parents may feel preoccupied by events back home. They may have little time or energy for children and their children's concerns. Parents also often struggle to explain political issues back home when they want to protect their children from upsetting events. And we have a couple guides over here that you can take with you about how to talk with children, how to stay close as a family, and to help others who are struggling with those issues. So there are professionals who you can turn to for support in your community. Certainly we are among those professionals. You can feel free to call us and we can try and help you get professional support in your community. And as I said before, we've brought some written materials here. And I think what we want to do now, Alice, correct me if I'm wrong, since you're all sitting at tables, is have some time to talk amongst yourselves about how you are doing. And we have some CBT staff here who can join tables that don't have us at them and continue some of the conversations that we started when we were eating. Is there anything else you want to announce? The university meeting? Okay, go ahead.